Hello. I want to talk a little bit about the biopic film Judy, which I've just watched with my friend, and a few talking points around that. Not just a film review, but a few of the issues that the film raises about the life of the vaudevillian actress, entertainer Judy Garland of Wizard of Oz fame. The title role is played by Renee Zellweger. Outstanding performance, one of the strongest performances I've ever seen from an actress. I'd say it could rival Natalie Portman in Jackie. It really was a strong performance, or Meryl Streep in Iron Lady for that matter. There will be some spoilers, I guess, in this video, but I want to talk about other things as well. I'm using my old computer just in case you're wondering why I keep looking to the side. In fact, I'll show you here for just basic information about the film. So basically it's a biographical drama, and it's about the last months of her life, but specifically when she was engaging in sellout concerts in London in the Talk of the Town tour. And this is an adaptation. The film's directed by Rupert Gould, who I must admit I'm not familiar with his work. It's an adaptation of the Olivier and Tony awarded West End and Broadway play End of the Rainbow by Peter Quilter. And like I say, the film stars Renee Zellweger as Judy Garland, and supporting roles Jessie Buckley, Finn Wittrock, Rufus Sewell and Michael Gambon. And they're playing, I'll just quickly run down who they play. So Finn Wittrock plays Mickey Deans, her last husband, who was 12 years her junior. Rufus Sewell plays her other husband, Sidney Luft, who she was going through marital tensions with him, a child custody battle and so on. Bernard Delfont was Russian born, I believe he was choreographer, if I just get that right. A Russian-born British theatrical impresario. Jessie Buckley plays Rosalind Wilder, who was kind of the production assistant on set. Richard Cordery as Louis B. Mayer. There's flashbacks to her time working on The Wizard of Oz. John Dalglish as Lonnie Donegan. Gemma Leah Devereux as Lisa Minnelli. Bella Ramsey as Lorna Luft, and there's a few other supporting roles. But basically this film follows Judy Garland in a difficult time of her life, towards the end of her life, short life, only 47 when she died in London. And it was a tour that she really didn't want to go on. I watched a video earlier from Miss Mojo as to what was accurate and what wasn't. Quite a lot of the film is accurate as to real events. For example, it is true that at this time in her life she was quite unstable. She was having the effects of alcoholism and drug addiction. I don't know specifically what drugs. I know she died from barbiturate overdose, but this was something I think she was always plagued with. If you look at the background, and I am pleased that the film touched on the young Judy Garland. I actually feel they could have maybe touched a little bit more on that. It really shows that she was set up to be messed up from the beginning, to put it bluntly. But anyway, the film shows her making this tour, and her performances were inconsistent, from very good to being unreliable. You know, she would turn up drunk, late. In one scene, which was quite hard to watch, the crowd turned on her. Now, unfortunately, that is based on a real event. It's difficult to watch, and your sentiments are, on one hand, you understand the frustration because they paid money and she was being unreliable. On the other hand, it's very ugly, mob-like behaviour. I think Judy Garland has a lot of echoes of Marilyn Monroe. Both women really never had a life of their own. They were both troubled. They both died arguably from the effects of their fame. And I think there's a lot of similarities. They both suffered depression and drug problems throughout their life. With Judy Garland, what this film focuses on is this time that she was in London, and she was dealing with other things as well, like wanting to be with her children. She had to do it to make money. It's sad. It's not entirely a feel-good film. It's quite sad. Sadder, for example, than Rocket Man, because Rocket Man, again, to compare it to another biopic of a famous star, Elton John in that case, we know the positive outcome. Elton John never died, and he's went on to be, one of the world's most successful singers. But it also showed challenges in his life. Now, with this, of course, we know, sadly, Judy Garland passed away. I actually thought the epitaph in the film said 6 months later she died. I actually thought it was around that time that she died, so it was a little bit later than I expected. Nevertheless, there's poignant moments in the film. There's one scene, for example, where she meets two superfans, a gay couple, two middle-aged men, and she asks them if they can go for dinner together, and it's late at night, nowhere is open, so they bring her back to their apartment, and there's quite a poignant moment where they talk about how they had suffered from Britain's sodomy laws, which were only repealed in 1967. Bear in mind, this film set in 1969, and Judy Garland has this monologue where she talks about the world is out to get anyone who's different. Now, unfortunately, this never happened. It's artistic license, but it's a nice scene, it's a poignant scene, and it is true that she was close to her regular supporters. So it didn't happen, but she was a gay icon. Some even speculate, although I think it's a bit of a conspiracy theory, that the Stonewall riots in New York City were partly triggered by news of her death, which happened around the same time or just before. But that's a bit of a conspiracy theory. Nevertheless, I think it just shows that she was close to the gay community. She was once asked that, though, and she said, "I'm just a singer." So she sort of distanced herself from it, but I think probably she was empathetic towards people who struggled. That's my impression without knowing in detail. I mean, I have to be honest, I didn't know a great deal about Judy Garland. I obviously knew her from Wizard of Oz, and I did know of the rumours about how she was treated as a child star. The film does focus on that. It has flashbacks when, it's absolutely disgusting how she was treated. She wasn't allowed to have regular food. It shows her friendship with Mickey Rooney, young Mickey Rooney. It shows how a very lecherous Louis B. Mayer basically tries to mould her as a little doll, and there's another one of his assistants, I'm not sure her character, but very cold, very just unfeeling. Ironically, on The Wizard of Oz, one of the few adults that actually was supportive of the young Judy Garland, because the other actors apparently, saw her as a threat because she was the star. The one other adult actor who actually supported her was Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch of Leith, so that's sort of ironic. But, it's very obvious that whilst she wasn't quite a child star, it wasn't like, certain stars who were really thrust into the limelight from a very early age. Like, her breakthrough, in a sense, was The Wizard of Oz, although she had been in productions before that from, since she was a toddler. She was still young, she was still only 16 and vulnerable. And they were feeding her drugs. Sleeping pills, waking pills. She was working solid, long hours. It was blatant child abuse, and I sincerely hope the industry has greatly improved since then. I think it probably has, but looking back, people like Louis B. Mayer were basically God in Hollywood. They had immense power, and the film really, I think, is a warning about the pressures of fame. And Judy Garland, I think it's fair to say, is one of the most famous stars of the 20th century. So the film is really a stark reminder of that. I think today actors, dare I say, have somewhat less pressure. I mean, they still, I can't say the pressure that they face, but I suspect that there are some more ethics in Hollywood today than there were at that time, and I suspect particularly for young stars. Also, the studio system is gone, where you had a single studio would kind of sculpt a star and hold on to them. That sort of system is gone, and maybe that's a good thing. So it's a film that's worth checking out. The bit at the end when she kind of asks Lonnie Donegan if she can have one final send-off performance is quite poignant, because there's one bit where she kind of breaks down in tears and apologises that she can't go on. The audience, presumably a different audience from the one that heckled her, they get up and they start singing Over the Rainbow. Now apparently this isn't 100% certain that this happened, but there is reason to believe it may have, and it's a beautiful scene either way. So I think the film is well made. I think it's a good film, and Renee, I mean, to me it was an Oscar worthy performance. She really did become Judy Garland. If you look at the sort of big props to the makeup artist as well, because Renee Zellweger, if you look at her in a film like Cinderella Man, she doesn't exactly look like Judy Garland, so the makeup person done a great job on that. It was filmed in London. Filming began in 2018, what else can I say? Of course, Vivian Leigh was found dead in London just 2 years previously. She was only 53, so she was another victim of Hollywood excess. But I think Judy Garland is always going to be seen as something of a tragic figure, in a similar way to Marilyn Monroe, because she will forever be iconic. The Wizard of Oz undoubtedly was a magical film, and it's rightly deemed in her very high regard, but it was a film with a lot of ghosts and a lot of very dubious practices. So yeah, if you like biopics, if you like good strong biopics that really get a multi-dimensional angle on things, I mean, there's a few bits in the film where it does show, it doesn't just idolise her, it shows that yes, this is the effects of fame, and at points she even comes across as a little selfish. For example, clearly she was a loving mother, at least that's what's portrayed, but also I found myself sympathetic to her previous husband Sidney Luft, who clearly had the children's interests at heart, and one got the impression that her new husband, and this is something that has been speculated on since, although this is only one-sided obviously, but many did, one does get the impression from the film he's something of a toy boy who is using her for her fame and money. And there's a bit in the film where she wants to get married and he has cold feet, and they get married nevertheless. She dies shortly afterwards, so who knows what his intentions were, but it does look a little bit dubious. Strong performance though by Finn Wittrock as Mickey Deans. Anyway, if you like a good strong biopic, I do recommend this film. If you're a Judy Garland fan, I think you will like it. It definitely shows her in a sympathetic light, but I don't think any of the characters, with possibly the exception of Louis B. Mayer, there's a bit, for example, that shows him even, being borderline predatory when he kind of gives her a lecture about not messing up his film, and he basically touches her chest. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I think he probably was a controlling figure, certainly the way he moulded young stars. Although, as far as I understand, it didn't have the same effect on Mickey Rooney as it did on Judy Garland. So anyway, check it out. I'd recommend this film. A little bit of artistic license here and there, but a lot of it is true to the facts. It's a sad film, though. I can't say it's a particularly uplifting film. There's a sad atmosphere about it. So yeah, check it out. Judy, 2019.